Hey, Lee Robinson here at American Sentinel Canine. Thank you for tuning in. This is going to be syllabus introduction to the first 10 videos that I plan on producing in our Canine Science series of videos. So these first 10 videos are not an inclusive list, and if you look through the list, a lot of these concepts may be, fairly basic. But if we don't start off with some basics, then where are you going to be when you'll be lost when we get into the more in-depth topics. So this is the first list on some things that we should know. Now you'll notice that some of them have a parenthesis behind the number, like number 1, parenthesis behavioral terminology, and then some of them, like numbers 4, 6, 7, and 9, have circles around them. Those videos won't be listed on our YouTube channel, at least not at this time. That's not my intent. Those videos will be on my Patreon page for those who wish to support us for this knowledge. And the reason why I selected some of them to circle and put on the Patreon page is some of these topics are really more for people who are going to benefit from the information in a more extensive level. Also, some of it's kind of a screening process because not everybody needs to know how to develop a personal protection dog or sensory dog, because you have to be pretty responsible to have a dog that could potentially go out and engage somebody. So that's what we've itemized. And anyway, the video number 1 is going to be about behavioral terminology, because if you can't speak the terminology, it's going to be very difficult for us to proceed in the series. So it's just going to be some basic terminology, and it's basically going to be behavioral oriented, which you're going to have to understand behavior in order to assess what the animals are displaying. And in that note, the second video will be learning to read performance, and this is going to include things like the drives that a dog is in, or how you can tell if a dog is more forward or something else is going on, if you got a lot of still aggression, those type of things. Reading the behavior and mindset and confidence and nerves of the dog. How do you go about doing that? Number 3 is setting your goals, and I almost put video number 3 first because that's how we really should really start off, is deciding what our goals are. However, if you don't know the basics on terminology or the basics on how to read a dog, it's going to be really difficult for you to establish good goals, because a lot of people don't really know how a drive can lead to success or failure. So you really kind of need to learn the basics before you go out and set your goals. You can have some general overview, of course, of your goals at the beginning, but really fine-tuning those goals is going to require some knowledge. And then from there, we're going to outline on planning your work. Planning your work and working your plan. How are you going to get to where you need to be? Going out and finding the best individuals that you can find doesn't mean the dogs down the street, not the dogs in the neighborhood. 2 individuals can breed 2 different programs of dogs that started with the same breed foundations, but because their selection criteria was different, they can end up in vastly different destinations. And so we want to make sure that when you go out to pursue your goals, that you're going to have a plan that's going to get you to the destination that you want to arrive at. Next, some basics on natural selection. Again, these videos with the parentheses, these are videos that you can go ahead and jump on YouTube probably and find a lot of that basic information already out there. But I've simplified this into a really short series of steps. We're going to take those steps of natural selection, modify it to artificial selection, and then not only that, but then we're going to put it into a population distribution and notice how to use that population distribution to drive your own personal program to the next level. And that's going to lead to the evolution of your program. All right, how do you take your program and always find an area that can be improved? Because if you can't find an area that needs improvement, then you really don't need a breeder, because if you're not constantly assessing your dogs, then you're going to end up being left behind, because some people are going to always be trying to find a weakness, and if you can't see that weakness, then you're not able to read the dog very well, and you need to be able to read that dog to find what areas can be improved. If your dogs look perfect, while a perfect dog may exist in your mind, it doesn't exist in reality. Some area can be improved regardless of what it is, whether it be just taking everything that you have to a higher level. All right, sometimes that's all you can do. Like, everything looks really good, but maybe they could run a little faster, etc. So you can always increase the performance of your animals, and we need to learn how to identify how to do that. Next, genetic drift and gene flow. And while you can find these topics on YouTube, I'm sure right now, if you notice over here in parentheses, I've got LB and OC. What that stands for is line breeding versus outcrossing. And we're going to possibly talk a little bit about Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium as a means to measure these things within a population, because this, after all, this is about the development of a population of animals. And to do this, even if you don't use Hardy-Weinberg, it still is essential to understand how line breeding and outcrossing can be used to take that program to the next level, and when to use it, and how to recognize when to use it. Because there's times that you don't want to line breed, and there's times that you do want to line breed. There's times that you want to outcross, and there's times that you don't want to outcross. And a lot of people have a hard time figuring out when to do that. We're going to identify how to actually use your line breeding and outcrossing to drive genetic drift and gene flow in the direction where you'll be successful. Next, classical conditioning. Classical conditioning is something that was developed by Ivan Pavlov. It's a basic behavioral science that you can find. If you type in classical conditioning, you'll find many videos that talk about Ivan Pavlov and the ringing bell and the dog salivating and how that responds to conditioned behavior. But the reason why it needs to be included in a Canine Science video is because not only is it about natural stimulus and unnatural stimulus and natural response and unnatural response, but we're going to try to use these terms to modify a canine's behavior for training. And what does that have to do with you? And of course that can be done with video number 9, developing a personal protection or sensory dog, and how to get that dog to be reliable for even passive attacks. And passive attacks means, let's say somebody comes up to you and makes a threat, but they appear to be non-violent, but they said something that was extremely violent, and because of what they said was extremely violent, but their body is passive, a lot of dogs won't key in on that, and they'll just kind of be friendly because they don't know what the person said. So this is when you're going to have to incorporate some classical conditioning to get those dogs to respond on command, even to a passive aggressive person. Next, operant conditioning. Operant conditioning is done by B.F. Skinner, and there's 4 quadrants in this process, and this is more behavioral modification, where in a training standpoint, not so much a conditioning standpoint. It's based off of positive and negative reinforcement and positive and negative punishment, and a lot of people really get the positive punishment and negative reinforcement confused, and they don't understand what those terms actually mean. So we're going to identify that, and of course you can find videos on that online if you want to. It's also well, it's just a good technique to know. Anyway, there you go. Y'all have a blessed day.